I'm going to use the pronoun I and me a lot, but take it for I and me as us and we when I talk about the commissioners and the Board of Commissioners. I am Ed Rothstein, I'm your commissioner here in District 5. I'm one of 5 commissioners. We are the decision-making authority for Carroll County, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a couple minutes. Does everybody get my newsletter? Does anybody not get my newsletter? Okay, we'll make sure that you get the newsletter, and it's easy to sign up for. This last newsletter I put out, and really that's what I'm going to go through, and I'm not going to get through the whole thing because I said I only talk 30 minutes. It's about 10 pages of stuff, and I'm really proud of a lot of this stuff that's in here, because a lot of this stuff that's in here has to do with you. We're getting to a level of normalcy, back to a place of normalcy. Whether it's going out to the dog park out here, which is awesome, and I really applaud Parks and Rec for putting that together, along with the community on showing the need for that dog park, but also putting the rules in place to wearing the mask, putting the rules in place to staying a social distance during this pandemic. The bottom line, it stunk, and we all know that. We are now at a place where I can see faces, and this is really cool. And I'm getting to a point where I'm no longer just kicking knees or elbows or fist bumps, but I'm handshaking and hugs. And that's really cool when I talk about, my family, that I'm able to do that. I believe I'm able to do that because of you. We can give guidance all we want, but it's the community that has to be committed to doing the right things. Also doing the right things is the vaccine. So if you have taken the opportunity to get the vaccine, that's great. If you have the opportunity and have not taken the vaccine, I ask that you consider it. I think personally, from everything that I've learned, there's more value in taking the vaccine than the risk in not taking the vaccine, or the risk that people associate with that vaccine. The more folks that take the vaccine, I think, the better off we're going to be. So that's my plug for COVID-19 and where we want to go past this pandemic. The one thing we learned during COVID-19 is how to work in different environments. Telework is a great example. How much work we were able to do via telework has just been phenomenal. Teaching our kids, although not optimum, was used, virtually. I didn't like that, and a lot of parents didn't like that. But again, the intent was to safeguard our kids and to put them in an environment where they could best learn while keeping them safe and healthy, along with the teachers and administration. Decisions were made. They weren't our decisions from the Board of Commissioners. They were the decision from the Board of Education and CCPS and the state, and we respect it. But what we learned was what were some of the needs with teaching virtually. One of the big needs that we learned challenging teaching virtually was the need for broadband. We're pretty good down here in the Sykesville-Eldersburg area. There's a few pockets here and there, but we are really challenged up in the northern part. I represent you, but I represent this county. I want the folks in Manchester and Tawnytown to feel as valued, especially with their children, to feel as valued as we value our children here in Eldersburg and Sykesville. So getting them the broadband up there is very important. And I'm just throwing 2 names out, but it's across the county. So we learned a lot from the pandemic. We learned how to take care of each other. We learned to respect each other. We learned how to do things innovatively through virtual telework and all that kind of stuff. Another thing I want to talk about, and I think a lot of you have heard me use the words listen, learn, lead. I believe in that, and it was a mentor of mine years and years ago while in uniform that shared that with me. I've taken it a step further by saying listening to you. That's why it's only going to be a 1/3, 2/3. Learn from you, and then lead together with you. I am definitely not a fan of social media. It can really be a pain in the neck with social media. But I will share with you there's some value that comes out of social media. One of the values that came out of social media was the Piney Run Watershed project, Piney Run the dam. Well, we hired AECOM, which is a contractor, to look at the dam at Piney Run because it's a dam that's failing. And how are we going to fix that dam? So they gave us a solution how to fix the dam. It's the dam of the Piney Run Reservoir. Reservoir is the key word in that. How do we now make that area suitable for a secondary source of water as it was designed to be initially? So now we're looking at the dam that has to be fixed. And now we're looking at the reservoir that was designed to be used as a source of water. As we're moving forward and thinking about how to deal with these two projects, social media really lit up. And what I mean is you did. It's about the community. And you started talking to each other and you started saying, you know, we understand the dam issue and you're right, that has to be fixed. But the water, we have water already. Can we figure out how to continue to take care of our community the way it is right now, but maintaining the culture and the beauty of what Piney Reservoir provides, and the nature center and all that? Because if it's not, we were going to have to drain the reservoir, and it was going to take 2, 3, 4 years by the time everything was said and done. Within 2-3 days, there was a couple thousand plus folks on social media, you know, not just save the reservoir, but giving us reasons on why the reservoir should not be touched. That is a great use of social media. It gave us an opportunity to listen, you know, via that, to learn the why, and then lead together with the community that we're going to fix this dam, but we're not going to touch social media, or we're not going to touch the reservoir, excuse me. So to me, there's ways to do things and sometimes not the best ways to do things. Another way that I applaud very much is the FDCA, which I always mix up the words. I know Freedom District, but it's Freedom District Citizens Association. I don't know why I always mix that up. Freedom District Citizens Association. If you're not part of it, I recommend that you become part of it, that you get on their mailing list, you get on their social media sites, and you learn the focus of the FDCA. And it is, how can we best take care of the Freedom District in concert with taking care of Carroll County? And that's going to lead me into this, my guiding principles. This is my guiding principle. This is my responsibility. When I say mine, I mean the 5 commissioners. And this is the budget. The operation budget, that's about $480 million. The capital community investment plan, it is projects that we are funding within Carroll County. This is our job. Our job is about 95% executive. How do we develop the budget? And then throughout the year, how do we execute the budget? I am a resource manager by looking at the time, people, and money, this specifically with money, people, because that's in here as well. How do we fund and compensate people? And then we execute it. That's really our role. The key there is to execute the budget to ensure you have the best quality of life that we can do. There's what's called discretionary, undiscretionary dollars that's within this budget. I do not have the breakdown, but I would say roughly 85%, give or take, is non-discretionary dollars out of the operational funds, 15% being discretionary. In other words, over 50% of our budget goes to the school system. That is because of the measure of effectiveness that had been determined that that money must go by law to the school system. So take that off the table. There are other funds that we need to then just take off the table and not make them available, within our budget. That then gives us a chunk of money that's discretionary. And we try to figure out how to best use that discretionary funds that suit you, and you meaning you, Eldersburg, Sykesville, our community, and Carroll County. An example of that is ag preservation. Well, there's not a whole lot of ag preservation down here in Eldersburg and in District 5. There's a lot of agricultural property in the north. Right now we have 76,000 acres of preserved agricultural property in perpetuity. Our goal is to get to 100,000 acres. This goal was put in place in around 1980. So we're about 3/4 of the way there, and we're going to celebrate that this fall. It may not be a goal and objective of Eldersburg, but it absolutely is a goal and objective of Carroll County. Another area is roads. In order to maintain suitable roads in Carroll County, we still have 59 miles of unpaved roads in Carroll County. In Eldersburg and Sykesville, 0. We are all hardened roads in Eldersburg and Sykesville. 59 miles, mostly up north. We put funds and set them aside to ensure that they can be used to harden those 59 miles of roads. Most of them are in District 4, the Woodbine area, and north, going up to Manchester and Tawnytown. Now, when we do that, it's like, what are some of the needs that we have here? So one of the ideas was Ridenhour and Georgetown. Ridenhour by Nels Acres, and Georgetown, that hairpin turn, which I can't stand, okay? So how do we fix Georgetown, putting a circle there, and Ridenhour, which parallels 26, because it's very dangerous going off of Nels Acres, I think that's like Fallon Ave or something, onto 26. We talked to State Highway. They were not going to modify the highway for ingress-egress, so the best next step was to look at Ridenhour Ave, which parallels. We put funds to do that. So it's not just how am I taking care of the 59 miles up north or looking at the broadband up north, but what are the needs also down here in development and growth. The other thing I want to share, not quite the Bible. I'm a Jewish guy. Maybe that's the Torah and this is the prayer book. I don't know. But this is more the direct use or the projects that we're focused on in the development and the land use here in the Freedom District. If some of you have heard, some of you may not have heard, the Freedom District, in other words, the area that is around us right now, is the largest designated growth area in Carroll County. The other growth areas in Carroll County are the municipalities. We have 8 municipalities, and then this, the designated growth area. This is much larger of a growth area than all the others, maybe even all the others combined. So this was developed over years. It was accepted, it was approved in 2018, and now it's time to continue to look at it and execute it. Like I said, my role is to be an executive with the other 4 commissioners, is how do we execute this best? The way we execute this best is the exact same way we execute the budget best, and that's by listening, learning, and leading. It's continuing to listen and participate with the FDCA. It's continuing to learn on what is best for the community, and then develop the plan and moving forward. And we've talked about this. It's not Linda's plan, or it's not Jeff's plan with DPW with the roads. It's our plan. It is the commissioners. There are certain things that we do not delegate down. One of the things we don't delegate down is the budget, and the other thing we don't delegate down is the execution of these type of plans. We're blessed to have, I believe, an incredible staff. We have our chief administrator, Roberta, who's been here quite some time. Linda Eisenberg, Director of Planning. We have Jeff Castaway, Director of DPW. We have Colonel Hart, who is the 2IC for the Sheriff's Department, as the Sheriff is sunbathing in South Carolina somewhere. And I can't remember your name. What's that? And Tiffany's the boss. So no, Tiffany just came on board a month ago working for Linda. And I think I just met her earlier today. So welcome again. So we're very blessed to have the staff in order to allow us to make the decisions that are appropriate on how to execute the budget and how to move forward with the comprehensive Freedom Plan. There's other projects going on across Carroll County, across Eldersburg and Sykesville. We'll talk about that in a few minutes because I'm going to hear from you and listen to you on some of those ideas. And the other thing you can use with this white card, I'm easy to find. I am so easy to find. I mean, typically I give my cell phone to anybody who needs it, but my email is very easy to find, and I try to be very responsive. A guy called me yesterday and was concerned about the old Pizza Hut, the weeds and the grass and all that junk that was, because it's an eyesore. So I was like, okay. So I happened to be driving down 32. I said, man, this looks like really not nice. So I call Roberta. Roberta calls Jeff. The guy calls me back today and says, thank you. I said, what'd I do? And they're cutting down this grass. I was like, that's cool. Now, whether it was coincidence or not, I'll take it. But I try to be responsive. And we will follow up on any action that you may have. Sometimes the answer may be no. Sometimes the answer may be we don't have the resources at this point to do it because, again, there's only so much that we have, but we'll work through that. I'm going to stop talking in a second, and what I want to do is hand it over to Colonel Hart because one of the concerns is dealing with safety and dealing with, police presence, dealing with speed control. And there's been a couple of horrific accidents over the weekend in Carroll County. I mean, just horrible, horrible accidents. When the sheriff called me yesterday, when the sheriff calls me, it's never a good thing. And when he calls me when he's on vacation, it really is not a good thing. And I just was really taken back. There was a couple bad ones. So I will say summertime pool safety is very important as well. I will say speeding is not the way to go in any direction. But what I want Colonel Hart to talk about is how does Eldersburg look right now? How does District 5 look right now as far as not just the stats, and he'll tell you the stats, but what are we doing really well? And what are some of the things that we should pay a little bit more attention to, okay? So, Colonel?
Good evening. I'm Colonel Rich Hart. I'm the Chief Deputy here at the Sheriff's Office. With me is Major Dave Stem. He oversees all of our law enforcement operations for the Sheriff's Office, so he's got a big old chunk of cheese to bite off every day. Here, a quick overview. We have 132 sworn law enforcement officers within the Sheriff's Office. We have 92 correctional deputies, and we have 52 civilians. So Sheriff DeWeese is on vacation right now, and he sends his love, but he's sunbathing and much needed vacation. He's there for 2 weeks, so I'm it for you this evening. Within the Sheriff's Office, we have primary law enforcement duties. We are the primary law enforcement agency within Carroll County, but we also have the detention center. That's also under the sheriff's responsibility. Now, not all the sheriff's offices in Maryland are like that. A little trivia, we are the Carroll County Sheriff's Office. There are sheriff's departments within the state of Maryland also. So this is a little bar trivia for you, so if you want to win some money one day, ask somebody what the difference is. So a sheriff's office is responsible for the detention center. That falls under their hospice. Now, sheriff's departments is separate. Baltimore County, Howard, Montgomery, Prince George's County, they're sheriff's departments because they don't control the detention center. Just to throw that out there if anybody's wondering why they call it the sheriff's office. So start talking about, he talked a little bit about the pandemic. That was a huge struggle for us in public safety across the board. It was a challenge that we have never seen. I've been doing this 36 years. Dave's been doing this for tons of years. The sheriff's been around forever. We've never had a challenge like that we faced, that we started a year and a half ago. So we had to get ahead of the curve and figure out how we were going to tackle the pandemic. We had a lot of deputies get sick. We had some get very sick, but thank goodness everybody survived and we made it through it. But our deputies, I can't be more proud. They faced this head on. They never missed a day. They came to work every day. It was really tough for us in the detention center because that's a big hotel where people can't leave. I mean, basically is what it is. So we had to manage that because we had folks coming in constantly. And so the sheriff was able to get with the health department, who we worked with very closely, and they were phenomenal, and to get employees vaccinated as soon as we could. And he also offered vaccinations for the inmates. And he caught a little bit of flack over that from some citizens. And the inmates they're people too. They deserve to get vaccines. If they were out in the public, they would be able to get a vaccine. Plus, the more people we got vaccinated in the detention center, the better off everybody was. It was safer for them, safer for the employees. So it worked out okay. But public safety across the board, we never backed down. Between us, fire rescue, we were there for you every day, and I'm very proud of my people. And we made it through. Thank goodness everybody made it through, and here we are. So statistics. You folks are in patrol area 9. You have 9 patrol areas, so congratulations, you're number 9. That's the Eldersburg, Sykesville area. We have 5 deputies. That's our minimum staffing for this area every day. You have to have 5 deputies. There's 6 municipalities and Maryland State Police that are also within Carroll County. The state police help us out. They patrol the state roads here, and they're great allies, so they come down and help us. So we have a lot of police coverage here. Sykesville Police, they'll come out of their town. We go into their town. Sheriff DeWeese has deputized every law enforcement officer, with the exception of the Maryland State Police because they have jurisdiction. But every municipal law enforcement officer within the county is deputized. So they can come out and help us whenever we need it. So we have very good coverage. You are definitely the busiest, most populated patrol area we have. And with that being said, year to date, our crime is down 16% in your patrol area. So, and historically, in the last 4 or 5 years, it's been low. We are the safest county in the state of Maryland. We've been that way for several years. But 16% is very good. It's down. And we don't have, compared to what's going on 30 miles east of us, we live in a great community. And the reason for that is I'd like to take all the credit and say it's law enforcement. And I'll give some kudos because it's definitely, we have a very robust and progressive, proactive law enforcement agency, but it's the folks that live here. We have great citizens and we have a very good relationship with the citizens, so it really helps us in policing. Some statistics off the top of my head I can tell you, in your patrol area, and we've had 1 homicide in 5 years. 1 is way too many, but we've had 1 in 5 years. And that was, we made an arrest on it, and it hasn't gone to trial yet, but it was a co-worker of the victim, so it wasn't a stranger. Homicide. We've had 3 commercial robberies in 5 years, so we've had 3 commercial robberies where somebody held up a Wendy's or the bank in 5 years. Look around, that's really good. Our violent crime is next to nothing, and we have some misdemeanor crimes going on. Our big box stores, the Walmart, it's a problem. The Ulta is a problem with shoplifting. We've had problems with that. I think we've had 14 or 15 theft from autos since the beginning of the year where somebody stole items out of cars. Majority of them are unlocked, so please lock your cars. It really deters crime. But really that number is very insignificant to what's going on in the region. Again, 1 crime's way too many, we understand that, especially if you're the victim of that crime. But just to give you some perspective, this is a very safe place to live. We, unfortunately, our overdoses are up 23% year to date. A lot of those are opiate overdoses. That problem, we're scratching our head, how do you fix it? When the stimulus checks came out, the 2 times they came out, our overdoses went up. Obviously, there's more money. We try our best. We've been working with the health department, the state's attorney's office. We can't arrest our way out of this problem, but our deputies and the fire EMS folks are seeing some tragic things in the last couple of years, especially with our overdoses. There's a lot of people that are suffering from that, and We don't really know how to fix that problem. Don't know. So, again, working with mental health and the health department, trying to figure that out. We're very proactive. We stress to the deputies, I want them to be seen. I want them to drive in neighborhoods. That definitely reduces crime. It makes our folks feel good that they see our police cars driving around. But we also do a lot of data-driven enforcement. So we have a crime analyst, and she works very hard. So she will look at data every day, and she'll call the major or one of the captains and say, look, we've had 2 or 3 theft from autos in this area, and the numbers are going up. So right away, we'll put people in that area. We know the times are happening. We can figure out what areas. We'll put folks in that area, whether it's marked police cars to be out there so people can see them, or we'll put our undercover detectives out there. So that's what we do. We are very proactive, but our data-driven enforcement is also very important, so we know what's going on. Speed enforcement, huge problem in the county, huge problem everywhere, but I get asked a lot by citizens, say, why do I see your deputies doing nothing but stopping people? That's all they do. Well, it's not all they do, but they're going to do a lot of it, and I'm going to make sure they continue to do it, because the chance of you getting injured or being the victim of something violent in this county is not very good, but the chance of you being in an accident or getting hurt in a traffic accident could happen. I mean, it's much more likely that that's going to happen than you'd be, a victim of violent crime. In other jurisdictions, they have different priorities. Traffic safety is huge here, and we continue to enforce and the speed. We have 150 speed enforcement areas, complaints.
As of today, 177.
177, where people call and say, there's somebody speeding on my road constantly, there's always cars speeding on my road, can you come and do speed enforcement? So we have 177 of those throughout the county. So that took, we have a lot. And it's a problem everywhere, but it's a problem here also. And we have our share of very bad accidents. And we have much more than I think we should. So we push our deputies. We have a traffic enforcement team that highlights those areas, but our deputies that are assigned to certain areas are responsible for sitting at those areas and watching to make sure that we can fulfill the speed enforcement complaints that we get. So that's why we pull people over. That's why our DUI enforcement is important, our speed enforcement is important. We target reckless driving. We're out there. We have to make sure that you folks are safe. And basically, the only way to do it is to stop people. And people also ask me, well, do these deputies, do they have a quota? We don't have quotas. We don't tell a deputy they have to write 15 tickets a day or 14 warnings. When you get pulled over, it's the deputy's discretion what they do. If they give you a warning, if they give you a written citation, and it's up to them. And we certainly would never dictate to them and give that discretion, take that discretion away from them. So our job is to change bad behavior. Our job isn't to penalize people or punish people. That's the court's position. We are to change bad behavior. And if we can do that by writing a warning to somebody and they understand that what they did was wrong, that's fine. And if not, if it's an egregious, really something terrible, and you get a traffic citation, so be it. But if you guys, anybody in the room has any problems or have any issues or have any speed problems in the neighborhood, myself and the major are going to hang around afterwards. Just come see us, and we'll talk to you about it, and we'll have folks out there. And the speed signs, have you seen the speed signs we put up that show how fast you're going? They also will, they correlate data for us. So they not only show your speed, but they're not taking pictures of your cars or anything, but they'll show us, how many cars went through at 10 miles over, how many cars went through at 20 miles and over, what time of day, what day. So we can also use that data-driven material and information for enforcement. Any questions I can answer for anybody? I'm here. If not, we're going to hang around.
No, I appreciate it. And like I said, I can share information for an hour and a half. I'm not going to do that. It is going to be 1/3, 2/3 with a little bit of flexibility. So bear with me just a couple more minutes, and then I'm going to turn it over to you. But I want to share, I talked about broadband, and I know this is difficult to see, but this is a map of Carroll County, and all I care that you see is the other colors, that orange colors. And if you see those orange colors up top, and if you can, they're all north, and that's why the focus, of broadband. And we learned our lesson during COVID on how many kids could not be taught because they didn't have coverage to look on the computer screens. One way we're fixing that problem is, one, we did a study to figure out exactly where those problem areas are, and two, federal funds have recently come into Carroll County. We are authorized to be getting a little over $32 million. We got a little over $16 million that came into the county. The staff is now coming to us being the county commissioners, with a laundry list of projects. And I expect those projects to be about $60 million worth of projects. And we're going to be paring it down to $16 million on what needs to happen. My expectations are broadband is going to be a large part of that, along with any other dollars that we can find, because I love using other people's money, to fix our problems on stuff like this. Another way of using other people's money, and I'm very, very proud of, is taking care of our veterans. Most of you know I am a veteran for a long, long time. We were able to, I don't want to say convince Maryland's secretary that the new Charlotte Hall, the new Veterans Home, which will be a 120-bed home, will be located in Carroll County. Not Baltimore County or Montgomery County, where we were competing, quote unquote, against, but here in Carroll County. And it's going to be, if you know Slacks Road above American Legion, across the street from the horse stables, kind of in that area. That's where it's going to be, 120-bed, just like Charlotte Hall on the Eastern Shore. The best part about this, besides just taking care of our veterans, 65% is federally funded, 35% is state funded, 0% is locally funded. And it was brought to my attention discussion this morning. It will also, to highlight, it will also bring jobs into Carroll County. So those are some good news stories I just want to share. And then the last thing I just want to share is, again, some of the highlights that are happening. If you hadn't gone to the Sykesville Carnival, what an awesome time. It was record-breaking. I think everybody wanted to get out of the house for the carnival, to just get out there. I'm a Lion. I'm a proud Lion. We were able to sell record-breaking amount of French fries. My job was to cut the fries from the potato, put in the thing, go like this. That's all I did. They kept me away from anything hot and greasy. Not that I'd be dangerous to somebody else. Well, I probably would, but that's what I did. And it was amazing. Not that, but selling so many fries and seeing so many people when I walk around. July 4th is coming up on Sunday. We're going to have the fireworks out at the Farm Museum. Pretty exciting that that's going to be opened up. July 3rd, down in Sykesville, will be a parade at 10 o'clock. I am very proud that the new mayor, Stacy Link, and that she is the new mayor of Sykesville, and congratulate her, which is going to finish up my talk, and that has to do with partnerships and communications. As I partner with you and listen to what you have to say, it's also very important to partner with my fellow commissioners on what they have to say on their priorities, but also on Sykesville and their priorities. Warfield being part of Sykesville, along with Main Street, which is a state highway. We have 3 state highways, Main Street, 26 and 32 in District 5. So knowing that relationship or having that relationship has been really, really important, regardless of who the mayor is and the council. It's the same with the administration. I'm going to have meetings with a lot of the administration, the state administration, because partnerships are so important to get things done. And we can talk a little bit more about that. Like I said, I can go on, and I want this to be your time. And I did bring my staff. Last time we did this, they spoke first. I'm like, nope, get off to the side. Let them answer some of the questions that you may have, and we'll go from there. So what questions may you have? Who wants to be first? There's always somebody that'll be first, and then we'll open it up, and everybody will start talking. Somebody's got to,
Okay,
yes.
I'll be first to just
Go for
break
it.
the ice. So tell me what's happening with Ridenhour. You just
With
don't
Ridenhour?
know. Where's
Yeah.
it going to come out that it's not?
Is it Sunrise?
I
Who's it?
looked. Sunset.
Sunset.
Panorama.
Panorama.
Okay, so that little place where it's the U, it'll come up to
It'll
there.
connect into Old Liberty.
Yes.
Yes.
And then it'll go
Got it.
onto Old Liberty onto Panorama?
So
or
it's
Sunset?
still not a light. It's still not bringing.
That's
us
right,
light,
it will
but
not
it's
be a light.
But it's a better.
Okay, I apologize. If you want to talk, you got to come here for that. So,
They made me do it, she has to.
And also, just let you know, rules of engagement on this. When we have somebody asking a question, the odds are I will repeat the question because, again, this is going to be televised or whatever and kept for others that aren't here today. And the only way to pick it up is for me to repeat the question, okay? And then we'll go through answering, just let you know. So go ahead.
So at Fallon and Maryland 26, right there is Ridenauer, by the Physicians Pavilion, and then you have the senior living on the left. There, it'll connect going across that property to the west. I think it's like a daycare center now, and then we'll hook up to the old Liberty Road roadbed. Okay, so then you have two entrances on Liberty Road. The first one, I believe, will be closed as part of that construction, and then it'll terminate at the end of Old Liberty Road, coming out, I believe it is Panorama. Jeff, is that what, are you looking at the map?
Yeah, gonna give me a second.
Yeah, it's Panorama.
Hickory Knoll, Sunset.
Yep. Correct, at Panorama. And I'm not 100% sure if a light is going to be there now. I think that is the intent, is to have it, in the future, is to have a signalization there.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, understand signals are not used for traffic calming. They're used for able to start and stop vehicles on intersections. And the reason I'm sharing that is we were talking to State Highway on how to modify the traffic and get traffic calming going onto 26 from Nels Acres. It's very difficult, and we couldn't get there. State Highway did not want to modify the traffic going westbound from the bridge, so we had to come up with an innovative way of doing it. Jeff and his team said this is the best approach in order to keep safety and flow of traffic, and that is to modify Ridenauer. In order to do that, we made that a priority because also in Nels Acres, there's a development that's going to be happening over there as well, and more growth of homes, senior homes in that area. What else? Come on. This morning, yes, ma'am.
So I'm Robin Warren, and I'm secretary for the FDCA, and if anybody wants any information, then we have some information. We came a little prepared. Thank you very much for the plug. But I did take your advice and wrote down on my little card some good and bad and ugly. So I wanted to just to highlight a couple of them. So the good is decrease ag funding for next year. I heard Wynn that may be in the works. So hopefully that funding.
Decrease.
Ag Pres funding.
Oh, decrease ag. So let me take this a little bit at a time.
Okay.
Okay, because again, to ensure folks can hear the questions for all of you, but also those that are listening, some of the ideas about decreasing ag funding. So when we went through the budget process, and this is also important, everything we do, we really try hard to do everything in open meetings. One, because it's the law. So anytime there's a quorum of 3 of us out of the 5, we must have an open meetings. We must publicize it and then be available for the community to listen and to comment afterwards. Not necessarily comment during, but comment afterwards. Ag preservation was definitely a topic that was discussed during the budget discussions, deliberations, debate, whatever word you want to use after budget. Conversations amongst the 5 commissioners. I was often bringing it up on the table to determine whether we had the appetite to either decrease it or change it. And at this point, in this budget right now, that was approved, it was not touched, and it's $3 million still every year for ag preservation from the county. The reason that also is important is it helps us match, it helps us promote ag preservation, but it also works to get matches from the state for funding. Next year, my intent is to bring it back on the table and say, where are we at and what's the appetite for either changing ag preservation funding or not change ag preservation funding. I don't want to say I'm for changing this or not, because right now, the way it's accepted is, it's part of us right now. So ag preservation funding is still there. But the last point of this, and I apologize for going so long, that is discretionary. That is money that we do have the ability to determine whether it's right or wrong to have in place. So, okay.
The other half was that hopefully extra funds will come for infrastructure here. So another thing I wanted to bring up that is I think of as a good thing here is the Patapsco Regional Greenway project that is coming out of Linda's plan. If y'all don't know about it, this is a 40-mile rail system to connect Sykesville to Baltimore's Inner Harbor. And so the plans for Carroll County's 2 segments should be finishing up in December 2020, and hope it'll get funded for the next year to actually begin.
Right, and I want to, Linda, if you can share where we're at with that. And this is going to be definitely for the good of the group. One thing is how does, and it leads into how does Carroll County tie into the region? We're not an island. We're definitely a part of a region. I serve on a couple of business consortiums, the Economic Alliance of Greater Baltimore. One of the other commissioners, Wance, serves on the Greater Baltimore Committee. He serves on Shock Trauma Board. He serves on the board of Maryland Association of Counties. We are not a standalone county in the sense that everything we do and just push everybody out. Absolutely not. It's all about partnerships and relationships. So anytime we get the opportunity to spread our wings and participate in things like this, it highlights the importance of Carroll County and brings opportunities into Carroll County because they'll feed right into Main Street, where it is. So, Linda.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. That is a project we are very excited about and one that we're very proud to work with.
What is the project again?
It is the Patapsco Regional Greenway, and as you said, it is a 40-mile contiguous greenway segment that will start in Sykesville at its western end and end up in the Inner Harbor. The section that we're referring to currently, the Carroll County section, the Sykesville connection, right now they're looking at different alternatives for connecting Sykesville area to the main stem of the Regional Greenway. The design that we're working on through a consultant, through Baltimore Metropolitan Council, it's all being funded through them as part of our partnership within the region with Howard County, Baltimore County, and Baltimore City. So this part will be a 30% design, and we're looking at 2 alternatives for connection. So no construction dollars are funded through this. That would be next phases as we move forward in the process. And the current concept is to go from Freedom Park and cross over Raincliff, and then have a path, a shared use path down Buttercup is one alternative to get into the town of Sykesville. And then another alternative is to look at an at-grade crossing at 32. I'm going to escape where that connection would be, but that is not necessarily preferred because 32 is a really challenging road to cross. But the idea is we want to try to get into downtown Sykesville through various spurs along the Regional Greenway. And so the comment period for that just ended. That's not something we control. This is part of this federally funded grant opportunity that we're all cooperating with on the region. But I would encourage you to go to baltimoremetro.org, which is the website that's hosting the storybook is what they're calling it for the Greenway itself and all the different connections within the Sykesville area. But it's going to be a great project.
And you're going to sit over here
I'm going to
because
sit okay.
I'm tired of hop along going back and forth. So, okay,
I threw you 2 softballs. Do I get a hard ball now?
go for it.
Now that I'm sitting here, now she's got a cat body.
Those were good softballs. I appreciate it.
So Freedom has a DGA. Can we begin looking at just concept of, it's a huge area, the growth, the astronomical growth that we're getting off of, it's still Freedom, but it's not Sykesville proper, but it's part of Sykesville. I mean, it's starting to explode. Does the entire area really deserve to be a DGA, or is it better served to, so that all of Freedom at least is not considered a DGA?
Okay, it's a good question. As I shared, and you know this, and I've shared this before, is I inherited this. I own this, I embrace it. And the reason I'm able to embrace it and work with it is because of you collectively. That was not brought up that way before, which makes it interesting. I don't believe, and neither should you or anybody in here have any thoughts, that everything in here is going to happen by a flick of a switch. You know, it will not. It will take a lot of time. It will be a process in place. The timeline associated with the development of it is a really good question and can be really looked at well. You know, because we're looking at large parcels, you know, whether it's a Zabel property or the Beatty property or any other large, there's not that many large residential properties, but also the commercial and other things that we've done. It's not all happening overnight. Looking at a realistic timeline of how things will develop, I think is going to be important. I don't think partitioning this out is the right way to go right now. It can be. We can. I'll put it this way. I'll bring it up. I will discuss it with the fellow commissioners, with the planning team. I know their recommendation is no, you know, up front, but that doesn't stop me from looking further into it. I've also asked often, what if we open this up and change A, B, and C? And they said, well, if you open it up to change A, B, and C, you're opening it up to change the rest of the alphabet, and you have to be prepared. So we gotta be careful what we ask for. The question is, are there things in here that are the golden nuggets that we want to accomplish? Like, what are the 10 things in here that we say, yes, these are things we want to accomplish over the next 3 to 5 years? What are the things that, no matter how hard we work, they're not going to be completed for the out years, say 20 years, and then everything in between? We could look at that. I never thought of looking at the comprehensive plan that way. I don't know, have you? Have we developed it that way?
We did actually, in the last plan, for the 2018 update, the Freedom area was contracted because the outline areas are preserved. It's Morgan Run, it's the reservoirs, it's Patapsco Valley State Park. So we did decrease it from like 26,000 acres to 19,000 acres. Contracting it more, I mean, that's something that if the commissioners choose to do so and they want us to look at, we can look at it. But I would not contract it beyond or further in than what the water and sewer areas and what the Sykesville municipal growth areas, because that is where we have the infrastructure for additional development.
Yeah, but more important also, I think, is also the timelines associated with it, right? Not just the property itself,
I mean,
but
it's 2040 is before, the highway, according to our transportation plan that just went out, it's going to be 2040 before we get any state funds to help out with highways 26 and 30.
so
So you've got all the traffic that's going to be associated with that.
So I love plans. I mean, I lived 30 years of plans, you know, in uniform. And every plan is great until you cross the line of demarcation, then plans change. Plans are very important. And I understand the 2040, and I've definitely heard that a lot. It doesn't stop me from talking to State Highway Administration, which changed hats recently. It's Terry Seuss, she's the district engineer. And we have, anytime I want, I give her a call, say, here's my concerns. Or talking to Secretary Slater, who is the Secretary of Transportation. And we're going to meet with him in August at MACO. Unfortunately, we received this on June 24th. This that I'm holding on June 24th is a letter saying that funds from Department of Transportation were moved to Department of Health from the pandemic, and it takes away a lot of the work that we had in priorities, you know, for upgrades of those 3 highways. So now we have to continue to work with him and say, okay, we understand the funding's gone. How can we either get it back or focus on parts of 26 and 32 and 851 Main Street in Sykesville? I'm going to do that. I'm going to continue to do that. There's a couple projects. We put a grant in for 851 down Sykesville. it's like 3 weeks ago. Yeah, around 3 weeks ago for $1 million or $2 million for upgrade. 32, you know, or many of you know by the National Guard Readiness Center, that big freaking building on the right, on the east side of 32. That's going to be open soon. They widened 32 from there to Macbeth. 32 and Johnsville and Bennett is finally getting to a point of supposed conclusion, and we're talking to them, and I put that in the newsletter from State Highway on when they expect to feel comfortable saying that that job will be concluded. I'm talking to State Highway a lot about 26, about especially the suicide lanes. I just don't like them. They're very dangerous, especially with the elderly communities. I mean, if we're growing Nels Acres, you know, and yes, we're moving Rhinelander, it's still very dangerous as a high-speed avenue approach going east to west. So yes, projects won't be done by till 2040 according to some plans, but that's not going to stop us from going after other dollars. You know, there's money from federal dollars for infrastructure that we go after as fast as we can. I know it's not the best answer, except that we're working towards fixing things that we see are problems and not waiting for a complete solution. Because if we wait for a complete, it's going to be 2050, and then it'll be 2060, you know, as things push out. Did you want to add to that? Or, I mean, that's just the way I'm going to continue to be aggressive in going after, especially 26 and 32. I can't talk about 30 and 97 and all the other and 140. I don't have as much situation awareness on that, but I definitely have it from you collectively, and definitely with the FDCA on those two roads, because yeah, it's dangerous, and especially 26. So, what else? Yes, sir.
What are the benefits of being a DGA? What are the benefits to the people who live in this area right now? What does it bring us?
I think it's not necessarily a benefit to you, as more of it's a benefit to understanding from where we're putting our priorities and our attention on growing Carroll County within the municipalities, within within the Freedom District.
How does that help Carroll County or the Freedom District? How does it help? What's it?
How does it help those of us in the Freedom District?
Well, it designates certain areas where growth, where we want to control growth, where it's not going to be growth everywhere, but there's certain areas that we say, yes, this is suitable for growth. Yes, this is suitable for growth because we have the infrastructure in place, or we have the infrastructure capable of being put in place for that type of growth. But it prioritizes, I apologize, it prioritizes our focus on the growing areas. And that's the way I understand it. I mean, if I see it differently, I'm more than happy to.
So in a dollars and cents thing, so it's prioritized for, as to where like sewer and water will grow, but is there priority in the budget to also increase the schools, increase the roads, increase police, increase other types of things that will have to also be put in place in order to really take care of that?
Right.
Is that automatically in the budget if you are a DGA, or is it just water and sewer to ensure that you can get occupancy permits for the houses?
No, it's a great question. I will never say automatic, because the budget is determined every year and where we're at. Right now, just to let you know, our budget, 5 years out, we're about $16 million in the hole, in the red. We're not in a good place. We passed the budget to get through for the next few years. But again, this is that discretionary, non-discretionary dollars. So it's very difficult for me to say something will be automatic. But I will say, if we look at it from a resource management approach, it is the priority of our people and our folks and our time to ensure that the infrastructure is in place. the sheriff's department, the partnership with the sheriff's department, ensuring he has presence, where they have presence down in the designated growth area is very, very important. You know, the water sewer that's already in place. What else needs to be put in place before we determine there needs to be more growth? Schools the same way. Now, schools is an interesting one because, as you know, the southeast part of the county, I'm looking this way, I apologize. The southeast part of Carroll County is becoming very congested when it comes to schools. You got Freedom Elementary, Carrolltown Elementary, Oklahoma Mills. I mean, they're getting very crowded, and they feed into Liberty. I requested from the school system, because we can't do that, we don't do that, that the school system and the Board of Education stand up a redistricting committee to look at how they should move the schools and redistrict schools to allow for either further growth or determine there will not be any ability for growth in that area. They started that way, they took a pause, they're going to reconvene and start again. When property is determined that it's allowed to be developed, a developer comes in simple terms, and I don't want to make this too simple for you because you probably know this, but in simple terms, the developer says, I want to build so many homes or so much, whatever it is. It's a checklist. And does it meet the criteria on the checklist? If it doesn't meet the criteria on the checklist, then the answer is no, or unless something could be waiverable. But when it comes to like fire, EMS, schools, infrastructure, roads, if the answer is no, the answer is going to be no. Then a decision has to be made. How do we get to yes? And you know, over so many years or over so much, you know, does the developer put money into a road or into a school? If the answer is continuing to be no, the answer is going to end up being no. You know, but that's the priorities of the designated growth area. That's the value of the designated growth area. It puts more attention from us and our focus on those growth areas to ensure we do it right. Beyond that, I really can't tell you. I mean, trust me, I've read this a few times, and it's very nice. And it says we're going to grow responsibly, and we're going to keep certain things intact, you know, and we're going to always, you know, look out for the community to do it right. And I agree with everything that's in there, the way it's written that way. And we're going to continue to work through it. It's not easy. One area, you know, that was a challenge was the BD property, whether commercial or industrial, whatever we determined it to be. I stopped it because I wanted to put it together with the rest of the property because we got to get it right. And I stopped it in the Board of Commissioners, put it back to the Planning and Zoning, you know, saying, hey, let's get this right before we piecemeal an approach, and then all of a sudden we have two separate things going. So, but that's also where you come in, you know, and that is where you come in. This is not confrontational whatsoever. This is, like I said, this is partnership. And sometimes it's going to be tough partnership, but you know, we're resourcing our folks to you, you know, with the meetings and everything else. Is there anything else you think of? Okay, I think that's where we're at with it. So, and honestly, the conversation doesn't stop here. It never stopped here, and it better not stop here, because if it does, then we're just never going to get things done. So, what else? Yes, sir.
So, in listening to a fairly lengthy response, it sounds to me like at the first part of that response, you're saying that we have the necessary infrastructure for the DGA, but in the second half of your response, it sounds like we're not meeting some of those critical points. So where does that, like, where does that leave us? Where are we headed? You know, if we're at capacity on some of the schools, if we have problems with the roads, yes, there's water and sewer, but you know, fire, EMS, police, you know, those seem like easier things to me, at least. But where do we put another school? If we're already at capacity, where do these kids go? Why are we still looking at building in the DGA if we don't have, like, redistricting schools sounds good, but where do you put them? Where do you put the kids?
Right.
And then, if we don't have anywhere to put them, why are we still looking at building on these properties? That's like, it seems like there's a disconnect. Like, I think you have valid points in
Yeah.
both of those sections of your response, but they don't collectively mesh to me,
No,
from what
I-
I'm hearing. So I'm confused.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
to add to that, I understand the Freedom Plan. Like, a lot of us in this room, we've been watching this. We've been coming to all the meetings. We started before the commissioners took the plan back, and we're still kind of waiting for the definitions to be updated. The zoning definitions, like, status on that, it still, to me, seems a lot like the cart's in front of the horse. I'm just,
Sometimes it definitely feels that way. And, let me unpack a few of the questions that you asked. And yes, it can be definitely confusing. Everything you said is legitimate. Sometimes I feel who has more rights, the property owner or the community that surrounds the property, okay? And that is also something that has to be discussed. Just because it's able to be developed and zoned a certain way, if the criteria doesn't allow it to be developed that way, then it will not be developed because it has to have those services. So in other words, again, if it's allowed to have 200 homes on a piece of property, but the infrastructure doesn't allow it to include schools or emergency services or roads, then it cannot be developed by our standards, by our law, by our rules. So something has to change. That could be redistricting to moving kids from one community to another. If they went from Freedom to Mechanicsville to up that way, to Westminster, Winters Mill, okay? Or if it goes to the left and west from, Carrolltown to Piney Elementary, Sykesville Middle, and then feed into Century, or all the way to, and then some folks from there go to South Carroll. It's not just one move, and that's what I deliberately told the schools. You can't just look at one piece of this part of the county. You've got to look at the entire part of the county if you're looking at the redistricting. That is very complex, and I don't want to go any further than that because I'd really get myself stuck. But one thing you said, and you're 100% correct. Well, everything you said was correct, but there was, okay. What else did you talk about? Because you brought it up, and it was.
I know, like, me personally, something that affects my wife and I, our property, is just where the county is with how they're going to redefine the zoning definition.
That's right. So, yeah.
How the Freedom Plan is written really relies on outdated zoning definitions.
That's right.
And that's something that really concerns me.
And it should, absolutely. And you do. It is the cart before the horse, whatever that analogy is, in many cases. And we are playing catch up. And the zoning definitions were very much antiquated, like decades and decades, right? I mean, they were really old. So we had to start somewhere. So we determined to start at commercial, industrial, and employment campuses. There's one employment campus in the southern part of the county, in our district. So we went through the process of defining the planning and, the commercial, industrial, and employment campuses. That took, I don't know, half a year? Longer. Okay, it took a long time because it went through a handful of steps. It went through the staff, it went through community, it went through, I think, planning and zoning. Yeah, we had work sessions because I was on planning and zoning back then as the ex officio. And then it went, that's right, because I was a non-voting member, because Linda corrected me, I'm not allowed to vote when I'm going to be making decisions later on. And then it went to the Board of Commissioners with staff through multiple work sessions, and they were all open work sessions. And there were folks that were there for the work sessions. And then we finally came up with defining the zoning for commercial and industrial and employment campuses. Then there were requests from the community, Carroll County entirety, what properties now did not fit in those different zoned areas. And they were requesting to be changed. And then we were determining whether it was a valid change or not. And we made those determinations. That happened. Now, we're in a position now to looking at the residential definitions, and then it'll be agriculture. Residential definitions, the first step, again, is the planning department, working with planning and zoning. It's already gone? Some? Where is it at? So to give you the timeline, because it's not a flick of the switch, and it is a really important question to understand, so I appreciate you asking.
So absolutely. So we are catching up now to the Freedom Plan. That's part of this implementation process that Commissioner Rothstein had said. So we did the commercial industrial employment campus. We updated the definitions or the code of rules and regulations that are in line with the Freedom Plan and the county master plan. The zoning code affects all of the county, not just one particular area, but all of the unincorporated areas of Carroll County. Moving forward, now we're working on the residential districts. I'm going to make a plug for tomorrow evening. I know we've sent this to Tim Passarella, who's on the FDCA, that we are having a community engagement virtual meeting with Planning and Zoning Commission tomorrow night. We've received a lot of written comments. We're asking if you want to speak and talk about what your concerns are with the proposed draft residential text for the R40,000 district, the R20, R10, and R7500, to please sign up on carrollrezoning.org, and just it has a little sentence that says click here to sign up, so that way we can call speakers in an orderly fashion. And since it will be remote, it's a little bit hard to call out people when they're on the phone. So we will be doing that. So please give us your comments. All the text as where it stands today with Planning and Zoning Commission is on our website. After this meeting tomorrow night, we will be meeting again with Planning and Zoning Commission to come up with perhaps their final recommendations to the Board of Commissioners. That's yet to be determined if they feel they've made their way through all of the comments and text and address things how they would like to address them, because they make a recommendation. They're a recommending body. Then some point in the future, hopefully this summer, that will be forwarded to the Board of County Commissioners for, again, their review. We'll work with them in work sessions all in the public, as we did with the commercial industrial employment campus districts prior to adoption. No residential property has been rezoned yet. We are waiting. We held back those Zabel and Beatty properties purposefully to wait for the text, so we were not putting that cart before us, because they understood that that was an issue with the community. And we were getting pushed, from both sides, because there was a lot of want on one end to rezone those properties, and then a lot of want on another end not to. So this is a middle ground for that, and we're going to be moving forward in concert with both the text first, then the mapping changes.
Just 1 second. I just want to add, just real quick, you get to stay because I'm sure this can be to you. I appreciate the question, because again, town halls a lot of times is me feeding information. Or town halls, you're going to get a lot of information. Getting this dialogue is so important because this is a complex problem. When we went through the definitions of commercial, industrial, employment campuses, there was absolutely no rubber stamping whatsoever involved. This was multiple sessions and multiple conversations amongst the commissioners and the staff to get the best answers we could. And then it came down to us, the commissioners, to say, yes, this is what we agree with. And then even after that, we made changes. Because again, I'm not going to hold a deaf ear to the community. And the community came to me because it had to do with a C1 property, a C1 issue about gas stations. And, we opened it back up and we're going to make the right decisions the best we can. It's not that I'm shy to open up a plan, but I am designed to make decisions, the best decision we can through the staff and most importantly through you with the input. But doesn't mean it's going to stop there or has to stop. And that's why I appreciate you asking. Yes, sir.
Yeah, so I understand that no zoning decisions are going to be made until the definitions are laid out, right? And you were talking about, I didn't really exactly follow, who's responsible for the zoning definitions then?
I am.
Okay.
I am.
And then who is pushing the rezoning? Is the seller?
Who is the the seller. The property, oh, you're talking about right now, what is the
When
situation?
the state of properties that want to rezone, right? Who's pushing that for the rezoning? Is the seller?
Sure. So it's an implementation process. So following adoption of a plan, one of the biggest implementation tools you have is your zoning code and your zoning maps. That are the rules and regulations that govern the land, and the map tells you where the pieces are in play. So we opened up a comprehensive rezoning process. There's two ways you can rezone land in the state of Maryland by law. A change or mistake that you had an issue. Absolutely. So it's not a pushing issue. What I'm telling you is we are in implementation, comprehensive rezoning. How we are handling it is that property owners, in order to be in agreement with the plan, are coming forward and asking their properties to be rezoned. So it's not a pushing. So I want to be careful that it's not that. It is a process that, as the county, we are doing to implement the plan. Property owners are coming forward and asking to go through a comprehensive rezoning process to zone their properties to be in agreement with what's in the adopted plan.
Okay, I mean, so in other words, the property owner, they're initiating. No, it's all good, but the challenge is, and it's important, it's not as easy as just simply because there's so much that feeds into the decision making when somebody comes forward and asks that. It's not just can I, it's how does it feed into the process.
And is there any other advantages to the county to rezone?
Is there any other advantages to the county to rezone? Again, I'm not looking at rezoning. I'm not looking at any property.
Advantages to the county that would make that a favorable action.
To allow for more houses or development for larger development.
What do you get rid of that $16 million budget deficit you're talking about by drawing more tax or something like that?
It would bring in some more taxes, but you're talking, it needs a lot more taxes than that. No, it would not bring in nearly enough taxes. You know, that's not even a consideration. It's not, the important thing is, do we want to maintain Carroll County as Carroll County in accordance with this plan? And so I'm not looking at a specific property, I being a commissioner. I'm looking at how things should be, you know, zoned and you know, put in place, but it's the landowner's responsibility to decide how they want to develop or sell it, and does it meet the criteria to be developed. But it's not a favor to me, and I'm not saying to me individually, but to the county.
There's no, when you rewrite,
Yeah.
you're writing the definition for how it's going to be zoned. So if you're biased in any way, you're going
Right.
to write that
That's
definition
correct.
how you want the definition to be
That's
written.
correct.
That's what I'm concerned about, because that's how you would bring legal recourse later on when this all goes down.
So that is correct, and that's why.
So you can't write it, right? And then just that's very tricky, right?
Well, your point is really well taken, and that is we should not look at zoning definitions when we consider a specific piece of property. That is not a good thing. That causes a lot of problems. Now,
Exactly. And then it's already in the forefront of everybody's mind. This is already out there. So you already have a conscious bias going about this, right?
Not
So it's very
really because-
difficult to have you write the definitions. I would think maybe somebody else should be responsible for writing the
Okay.
definition.
First off, I don't write the definitions.
You said you did about,
I approve
so
the
who writes them
definitions.
then?
They're written by the planning department. They go through the Planning and Zoning Commission. I'm looking there because there's a member of the Planning and Zoning Commission. And then they make recommendations to the Board of Commissioners. The Board of Commissioners then consider the definitions of whatever, you know, however they're defined,
So-
and then we approve them. But
I just think it's really funny that you're rewriting definitions at about the time you're about to go through an approval for a rezoning.
So,
It's
so let's
just,
be clear, we're not rewriting
Yeah.
any definitions, and I think that's, you know, maybe just a misnomer or confusion of words. What is happening is we are updating the current zoning code. We have these districts, the R40, which is 1 unit per 1 acre, R22 units per acre, R7500, which is about 6 units per acre, and R10,000, which are 4 units per acre. There are no new zoning categories being added as part of the residential process. What we are doing is we are looking, we being the collective county government, the people that are reviewing it, it's been out in the community, so you and the community have an opportunity to review and comment on what's being proposed. We are looking at modernizing the code. We are looking at things, for instance, in the R20,000 district, commercial, as far as dental practices, physician pavilions, accounting offices. We're proliferating our R20 along the 26 corridor. If you notice, we have a lot of those. Those were changed to now commercial. And those types of uses are being taken out of the R20 district to make it more of a residential district. So we're not rewriting for a specific owner. You cannot do that. That's contract zoning. That's illegal. What we are doing is reviewing and refining the existing code for the residential text that's already there. So I would encourage you, go look online before any judgments are made about what's being really changed, and it's very clearly highlighted what changes are being made in the code for the residential districts.
So-
and it's not a complete rewrite, it's a refinement.
Because your question is really important, and your comments are very, very valid and very important, because they're an absolute concern of me, and they should be of you and everybody else when it comes to ethics and it comes to how we make our decisions. And like Linda said, it is illegal to make decisions based on a property owner and rezoning something in favor or disfavor of that property itself. We will not do that. I won't even say it becomes tricky, but it does become.
The only one it benefits is the seller, right? That's what we've identified that, right?
It's not necessarily benefits. It defines what the property owner can and cannot do on that piece of property that they own. It's but actually as long as they stay where they are, they're fine. You know, we don't, when we move something from residential to commercial and there was a house there and somebody living there, we're not kicking them out because it's now commercial. They can live there their whole life. And they can sell it as residential, actually, and they have so much time to do that before it reverts to the new zoning commercial. But what we're doing is we're cleaning up the definitions of the residential zoning, just like we did with the commercial. We cleaned up the definitions of what commercial, what type of businesses belonged in commercially zoned areas. That's what we're doing. So.
I guess it's still, I just want to make it on the record. We said that the county doesn't benefit from the rezoning, correct? Or the county does benefit from the rezoning. It seemed to me like the county does not benefit from the rezoning. Strictly the seller is benefiting out of this.
The county benefits from the decisions made for rezoning because it will be in line with the county's vision and with the county's comprehensive plan here and what the county wants to do for its community and quality of life. That's how the county benefits from these decisions. Every decision I make has to do with you, has to do with, and that's not, you know, I want to say I'm getting tired of politics because military leaders and politics don't mix, so I'm just taking politics away from it, and I'm looking at this from a leadership. Every decision I'm making has to focus on you as your quality of life, and has to focus collectively, and collectively on you, because it's a great question. It's how are we making the decisions? It's not to benefit the county, you know, up in Westminster, it's to benefit the county, the 168,000 plus in the county, to have the quality of life and the expectations that we have here in Carroll County. That's why, I won't say it's difficult, but it's challenging, it's a better word, to develop the Freedom District area, because there's a lot of opinions and ideas on how this area should be developed and what is in the best interest for the community. Is it going to be overgrown, too much traffic? You know, are we focusing on the right areas and all that? And that's why we get your input. But it's not to benefit Westminster, it's to benefit you. And that's why I'm very much committed just to getting it right. Again, really good questions and really good comments, actually, and statements, because you keep us in check. It's not about, you know, up there, it's about here. So Okay, and we can talk more. I don't want to take all our time doing this, but really good point. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, good evening. I have my positives,
Okay.
and I just wanted to thank you all for your service to the citizens of Carroll County and your commitment. And I especially appreciate, as a nurse, the way you led us through the pandemic with the weekly updates with Ed Singer and the startups of the vaccination clinics and testing sites.
He's a
and,
rock star.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
just getting all the numbers going in the right direction so that we can sit here tonight and
Yeah.
see one another. So I appreciate that. I do have a concern, a related issue. You may recognize my name. I'm concerned about the zoning codes in the Ag and Conservation District regarding accessory dwelling units. Our personal concern is the ability to be able to age in place with family. And, you know, we are bringing that to the leader's attention because of the restrictive zoning codes are prohibiting us with an accessory dwelling unit on a pretty good sized lot.
Yep.
So I'd like to know how that might roll out in the near future, how it can be made a priority, and what I can do to help.
So I think, without going into the specific detail, and we can do that because we've been talking, but is understanding the process when things don't go your way, when they're not in accordance with zoning. What is the appeal process? Is there an appellate process that we have in the county? Linda?
So I believe you've already been through all of that, so I won't go into that, but I will tell you how to help in the future is that, so much as we've done the commercial districts and the residential districts, we are starting on the ag and conservation districts. We have received your comments. They are in our file to be one of the items to talk about for these accessory dwellings on ag and conservation land. I'll give you my card here at the end of the evening, and we'll make sure that we're in touch and that you're part of our file to continue to contact and update. So I do have all your information. Yep,
And then
absolutely.
also- Yep.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's nice to meet you. We'll talk.
Absolutely. And then also, if something doesn't go your way, we do have a Board of Zoning Appeals that you can go to and ask for a change. Yeah, I understand, but I'm just, for the good of the group, is the Board of Zoning, and they are independent. We the Board of Commissioners, identify and select them, but they are independent from us to allow them to make those decisions. And they make the reviews. So, yes, ma'am.
I have two. So one obviously is zoning, because everyone wants to talk about zoning. The only thing that hasn't been mentioned so far is the environmental impact, I guess, of increased development in our area. Our area watershed feeds into Liberty Reservoir, which is where people, and the other streams, you know, kids wade in those streams, my kids play in the streams, people fish in the water, people boat on the water, you know, that's our drinking water in Liberty Reservoir. So my concern is that and if we all feed to Chesapeake Bay, so more development equals more pollution and more runoff and that kind of thing. So in addition to, I have two kids in the school system, and I'm already very concerned about the overcrowding there. So that was the only, but the other issue I want to talk about was completely unrelated to zoning. So I hope that's okay.
Is what? I'm sorry?
Unrelated to zoning.
Okay.
So I hope that's okay. It's just a concern I have about safety in my neighborhood. And it's nothing to do with the police issue, because I think you guys are doing great. I feel very safe from crime in my neighborhood, except for the dogs. I have a dog, and many of my neighbors have dogs, and they are frequently let out without a leash. I have begged my neighbors to keep them indoors. I've called animal control on my neighbors, which I hate doing because it makes my neighbors not my friends anymore. But I'm not safe. My dog is not safe. He's been attacked. He's been harassed. I've nearly been attacked by my neighbor's dogs. And there's just no respect for leash laws. I don't know about other communities, but in my community, there is no respect for leash laws. People intentionally, sometimes, you know, some dogs are escape artists. And so I understand they get out, but if you know your dogs get out, they should be on a leash.
Okay, so I appreciate it. So the first about the zoning, and again, I agree with you. If there are concerns with environment, if there's concerns with any piece of development that doesn't make sense, I don't want to say just because you can doesn't mean you will. Just because it can be zoned a certain way and developed, identified, they need to go through the process to determine whether it has the impact or not. If it has the impact adversely on the environment, they will not be able to develop. they would have to make a change. They, whoever they are, would need to make a change. We can get more into that. And I don't want to go into circles about this, but that's kind of, the patented answer right now about that. As far as dogs, yeah, that upsets me. In my community, in my neighborhood, we don't have that problem at all. I walk my dog often, and I see people walking their dogs, and I never see dogs off leash where I am, but yeah.
So if you have an issue with dogs are running astray and they're threatening you or your dog, call us, and we'll come
I
out
have.
as
One of
deputies.
I have.
And we will
It just
make
doesn't
sure that
get
it's
better.
safe, and then we get a hold of the Humane Society.
Okay.
I'll give you my card.
Thank you so much.
And I know the director of the Humane Society. If there's an issue, we'll take care of that. We have.
Thank you.
They control the ordinances for that. But if there's an issue, call us, please. We'll come out.
That's pretty upsetting because it's extremely dangerous. And I've been in situations like that, so I appreciate it, Colonel. Okay, what else? What else is on your mind? One thing I want to make a plug for, because again, I pointed in the back about Planning and Zoning Commission and the importance of our boards, and Planning and Zoning Commission being one of them. Linda does incredible work with her team. She feeds as much information as she can with the recommendations to us, the Board of Commissioners, to make our decisions. Roberta has the great opportunity to herd all the cats, herd all the directors, and put them all together and making the recommendations and going through the processes to, in my case, simplify it in many times to allow me to make the best decisions possible. Regardless of how good they are, along with Jeff and everybody else, they can't do it on their own. So what we have are extended outreach in certain areas. Aging and disability. You're in one of the senior centers. We have senior centers across the county. Are we doing it right, or can we be doing something better? We have a senior expo coming in the fall. There's a lot of opportunities taking care of our seniors and those that are disadvantaged and disabled. Do we have the right mix of resources to service them? Veterans Advisory Council. Again, do we have the resources available to take care of our veterans in Carroll County? I sure hope we do. I talked about the veterans, facility that's going to be built, but what else needs to be done? What other resources and what other partnerships need to be built to ensure we're taking care of our veterans? So the Veterans Advisory Council helps on that. Planning and Zoning Commission is a very important one. How, when people are coming through the concept plan and all the processes to getting something developed, here in Carroll County, are they meeting the criteria necessary to go to the next step to allow the Board of Commissioners to make decisions on something being developed here in Carroll County? And there's others that are out there. The reason I'm sharing this with you is I ask that you think about the things that matter most to you. And if you have the opportunity, go on the website, look at those boards and commissions. I don't want to say we need fresh blood, but we always need more folks going on those boards and commissions. And the more applications we get, even if you don't get selected right away, the more we have in our files, the better off we're going to be. Because I want, personally, more representation from District 5. We've got a lot of things going on here in Eldersburg and Sykesville. I'm not dissing the other districts. They're really cool. We're better, but they're okay. But I want better, more, that's right, I'm televised, shoot. Anyway, I want more representation from this area in these type of boards and commissions. So I ask that you do that. The conversation doesn't have to stop here, I hope this was informative for you and you took away some new information. If you took away some frustration, I apologize. Come up to me, let me know, and let's continue to have that dialogue, because we've got to work this together. We got to lead through this together. I'm so proud to be a Carroll Countyan for all the right reasons. Most recently I saw an article, and I'm going to finish on this, if not in another second, and it had to do with SROs. And I went to the graduations of a couple of high schools, Liberty and Century, and the SRO over at Century, who's another big guy, okay, Deputy Harvey, and Harvey, right? Yeah, yeah, and I mean, the story about this guy is pretty amazing. Him, along with the ROTC, the junior ROTC instructors, and the school nurse, saved a young man's life that fell out during exercises in the morning, like literally collapsed. Got the AED, performed the AED, and got him via Woodbine ambulance to the hospital and saved his life. This kid typically was going to school virtually. Some reason he went to school at Century that day. Going to school that day saved his life. Going to school that day with Deputy Harvey there saved his life. I'm so proud of our SROs, you know, unlike other places. You know, they are doing, I believe, what's right. Standing tall and being present, you know, in the schools and allowing our kids to respect them the way they should be. I can't say enough about it. It's been tough, you know, and you know, that's just something I just want to share with you. That's Carroll County, that's Eldersburg, that's Sykesville, that's Century High School, and yeah, I think that's a pretty good final thought to think of. So, pretty cool. Anything else for the good of the group? I really appreciate your time, and just have a great night, okay? And stay safe.